It's May 2008 in the affluent suburbs of Noida, India. A 13-year-old girl named Aarushi Talwar is found dead in her bed. Looking at the floor plan of the apartment, the initial police theory seems straightforward. Aarushi is in her bedroom, her parents are down the hall, and there's a separate servants' quarters with its own exit. Because there are no signs of forced entry, investigators assume the live-in domestic worker, Hemraj, committed the crime and fled into the night. But the very next morning, a gruesome discovery shatters that assumption. Hemraj's decomposing body is found hidden behind a cooling panel on the apartment's locked terrace. By the time police realize they have a double homicide on their hands, the apartment is packed with grieving relatives, curious neighbors, and reporters. People freely walk through the rooms, wiping down surfaces and tracking blood into the stairwell. The first responders fail to cordon off the area, and within hours, 90% of the physical evidence is trampled. Investigators are left with a locked apartment, 2 victims, no murder weapon, and a severely contaminated environment. Every conclusion they attempt to draw from this point forward will be built on a damaged foundation. For the first 48 hours, the Uttar Pradesh police operated entirely on the assumption that Hemraj was a fleeing killer. Finding his body on the roof completely collapsed that narrative. Needing a quick resolution to save face, the police arrested Aarushi's father, Rajesh Talwar. To justify the arrest, investigators briefed reporters on a speculative motive. They suggested Rajesh had caught his daughter and the servant in an intimate position, committing a double honor killing to hide an extramarital affair of his own. None of this was supported by physical evidence, but the salacious details dominated television networks for weeks. Realizing the state police had mishandled the crime scene and created a media circus, the government transferred the case to federal investigators at the Central Bureau of Investigation, or CBI. The local police had proven that when physical evidence is destroyed, investigators often fill the void with rumors. The first CBI team took over and immediately discarded the honor-killing theory. Instead, they suspected 3 Nepali domestic workers who lived in the neighborhood had killed the victims after a late-night drinking session with Hemraj. Because the apartment was wiped clean of useful prints or DNA, the CBI leaned on narco-analysis, injecting the suspects with truth serum to extract confessions. This flowchart maps the results. Instead of a clear sequence of events, the tests produced 3 highly contradictory timelines that didn't align on who did what or how the murders actually happened. The investigators tried to back up these drug-induced confessions with physical evidence. They recovered a kukri knife and a blood-stained pillowcase from the suspects' homes, but laboratory tests found no matching DNA on the blade, and the pillowcase was later revealed to have been mislabeled by the forensics lab. It actually came from Hemraj's room, not the suspects. Legally, a confession obtained under the influence of drugs is inadmissible without hard physical proof to support it. The CBI had nothing. The 3 men were released, and the second theory collapsed. A year into the investigation, a second CBI team took over and pivoted the focus back to Aarushi's parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar. The new team focused heavily on the mechanics of the apartment. As this perimeter line demonstrates, the exterior doors locked automatically. The CBI deduced that no outsider could have entered, murdered 2 people, dressed the crime scene, and dragged Hemraj's body to the roof without the parents hearing it or providing the keys. Looking for a weapon, they examined Rajesh's golf bag. By comparing the dimensions of a 5-wood golf club to the U-shaped blunt force injuries on the victims' heads, the CBI argued they had found a match. But the forensic reality failed to support the logic. Not a single drop of blood was found on the parents' clothes from that night, and the golf club yielded absolutely no trace of DNA or biological fluid. The CBI concluded that while the parents had the proximity and the opportunity, there was simply not enough forensic proof to charge them. The agency filed a closure report, asking a judge to formally close the case due to insufficient evidence. But the local magistrate in Ghaziabad rejected the CBI's request to close the file. In a highly unusual move, the court used the gaps in the closure report to order Rajesh and Nupur Talwar to stand trial for the murders. In 2013, after a trial heavily scrutinized by a hostile public and a sensationalist press corps, the court convicted the Talwars and sentenced them to life in prison. The parents spent 4 years behind bars before the Allahabad High Court heard their appeal in 2017. The appellate judges reviewed the CBI's timeline, ultimately dismissing it as an impossible hypothesis. The High Court ruled that a conviction cannot be based solely on the fact that the suspects were inside the house. Because the initial investigators failed to secure the scene, it was impossible to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that an intruder hadn't slipped in. The state police allowed the crime scene to be destroyed on day one, and the justice system spent the next decade rushing to find a villain to satisfy the public. Today, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar are free, but the double murder of Aarushi and Hemraj remains officially unsolved.